I'm Nicky Miklos, and this is the Smart Business Growth Podcast, where we ditch the busy trap and get real about what it takes to drive sustainable sales, lead with clarity, and build a business that's future fit. Let's dive straight into it. Hello, you gorgeous human, and thank you so much again for joining me today for the Smart Business Growth Podcast episode. I've been really thinking a lot lately about what actually does the role of a salesperson and a sales leader look like in this modern day landscape in 2026. Not only am I having lots of conversations with sales leaders and salespeople about what's changing, and there's a lot of change with the introduction of AI, the transparency that we now have, the ability and capacity and capability to be able to observe sales calls and use them for coaching tools is beyond what we could have imagined. And even for those really advanced sales teams that have been doing things like call observations for a while, and for those of you who don't know what that might be, it's essentially recording sales calls or videos, being able to observe them and then give the salesperson feedback. Back in the day, we might do that with an in-person meeting and have, our leader by our side and then give us feedback. Certainly that's what I remember. Shout out to Gemma if you're listening to this. That's one of my first memories of actually being coached from a sales point of view. And then, of course, now with the tech and the move to online, we can record calls, we can observe them, and we can give feedback. And some businesses and sales teams have been doing this for quite some time. But the level of transparency has increased and is increasing at a very fast pace, which means that it's accessible to more teams to be able to do this. It also means that there's a real shift in the person that's being now recorded and coached in that way. But the other thing that really has got me thinking is, what does that actually mean for the client interaction, for the buyer interaction, for how the buyer is making their decisions? And I read a HubSpot 2025 sales trends report that has so many interesting statistics in it. But that really also led me into this place. And I'm curious about, when was the last time that you, as a leader, as a business owner, maybe as a salesperson, really paused to think, how has my role changed in how I'm interacting with clients? This report in HubSpot said that 74% of sellers, so salespeople, say that AI tools have made buyer research easier, which puts more pressure on sellers to deliver real value. Now, we know this. So this is 3/4 of salespeople that were filled out the questionnaire, the survey. We know that AI has made it so much more accessible, the information of the product and service that you are providing to your clients. And that has been ongoing for decades. Even with Google, Google made it so much easier. And now it's just been taken to a next level. And so perhaps before, where the role of the salesperson was to give features and benefits, don't even get me started on that, but maybe that was what we were told back in the day is our role. Well, it's not anymore, because we can research that for ourselves. And oftentimes a buyer will come to a salesperson and they already know sometimes even more about the product or service that they're buying than the salesperson. So where does that leave us? If our buyers are already walking into conversations with salespeople or ourselves already informed, and if we are still leading with features-focused conversations, the features and benefits, we're already behind. In this report, HubSpot outlined that they believe that the modern seller adds value by building buyer confidence in their purchasing decision, helping buyers secure internal buy-in, and addressing the emotional side of decisions. So salespeople are no longer information providers. We are decision facilitators. We are the human layer that AI cannot and will not replace. And so let's dive into this a little bit today. I'm curious for you to think about, how long have you been in this world of sales? And if you're a sales leader, business owner, probably some time, just like myself. And so think about, how has it changed? As I was reflecting on this question for myself, I kind of went on a bit of a journey and thought, I've been in this game for, I figured it out, about 24 years. well, arguably even earlier than that, because I could say at Sawtell Seaside Seafoods, the fish and chip shop that I worked in, the moment that I was old enough to work. But even if we don't count that, I've had experience in leading, being a sales manager for retail stores, moving into media, advertising. I never actually sought out a career in sales. I never specifically, and a lot of people are like this, want to be in sales. But I was very good with people and naturally curious enough to ask questions and build rapport. And so before I knew it, I had the opportunities that were given to me in retail management and then moving over to media. But really, what are the dots that connect each of those experiences? I remembered the fact that when I was manager of a sports girls store in Coffs Harbour. And I remember saying to my team, we should not have to wear name badges. We shouldn't have to wear a uniform. Not that we would wear a uniform in that environment. But name badges are irrelevant. When someone comes into that store, they need to know that you are working there because of how you make them feel, because you are walking with a sense of purpose, a sense of pride. You are there having a conversation with them, not trying to icky, sleazy sell to them. But there's an energy that is attached to that because really it's about how we're making people feel. It's not about the sale at the end of the day because that will be taken care of if we focus on having a conversation, asking great questions, understanding what is the outcome that they're looking for. And even in retail, whether it's selling dresses, whether it's selling newspaper advertising, which is where I moved to, whether it's selling houses, cars, it does not matter what we're selling. The principle is the same. How we make people feel will have them coming back to us, even if they don't buy on that day. Now, it's not just, of course, having a random conversation with people, but really the underlying principle, when that's overlaid with effective questioning, getting clear on the outcome, guiding them along is so much more impactful. We held standards. Customers would know. And when I really shifted gears and entered a different industry, it was the same. A quick interruption to this podcast episode. I'm really curious. Do you want to close more sales in less time? If the answer is yes, which I hope that it is, then you need to get your hands on the Growth Code. It is going to give you 3 proven frameworks and tools that will help future-proof your business and scale with clarity. All you have to do is head down to the show notes and click the link below. I remember further along in my career in media advertising, we created a business unit within a large organization that was selling websites. Now, this was in a day that websites were not as common as they are today. We were trying to get people to look to the future where we are now, where every business has a website. It's a no-brainer. But back then, it was new, it was scary, it was unfamiliar. And so we had to be that safe pair of hands to guide them along the way, to align it with and compare it with something familiar so there's enough certainty for them to step into the unknown. Now, what I just said there in that statement, we could apply that to any time of selling. It's so relevant to now when there's so much uncertainty. Sales cycles are longer. More decision makers are being included in these decisions, but budgets are tighter. It's the same thing. How we're making them feel. How are we a safe pair of hands guiding them to where they need to go? Another thing that really jumped out at me was the GFC, the global financial crisis in 2009. It's the same principles again, COVID and everything that changed through COVID. If we really start to look at this from features and benefits are a surface level focus, it is not the thing that will not just get people to say yes, but give them confidence in their decision. If we still follow that old school way of thinking, then money's left on the table and opportunities will absolutely be fallen by the wayside. I was having a conversation with a salesperson today and we were talking about the cycle and the length of the sales process within the business, which actually brings me to, I loved this slide in the HubSpot report, which is titled "Why Deals Die." Dun, dun, dun. And 30% of buyers will walk away because enough trust is not established with the seller. Interesting. Some other reasons, top reasons, they're not ready to make a purchase. The buyer does not see the worth for the price, so budget. They're not convinced it's the right fit for them. They're unable to get approval from direct decision makers, internal decision makers, and the sales process takes too long. These are the reasons that deals don't go through. And it makes sense. These are the common challenges that I'm talking to people about when we're looking at improving their sales process. They're not ready to make a decision, but trust is not there. Throughout my journey, what I've really realized is that the old school ways of sales, and I mean, talking 20 years, I realized this a decade ago when I started my first business, the old school ways of sales, they just don't cut it. There's nowhere for us to hide. We really have to be aware of what are our salespeople focusing on. And so a good little trick tip acronym, I love this framework, is TEC. So this TEC, TEC, is based on all of the conversations, all the observations that I've had over the last 24 years, my own experience selling, but also leading teams through the GFC, through COVID times, through all of the challenges, the external market impacts that we have already faced, that we continue to face. Understanding these reasons why deals die. And it comes down to these three simple things: trust, easy, confidence. So the questions to ask yourself are, how am I or how are my salespeople building trust? How are they making it easy, a no-brainer to say yes? And how are they helping build confidence? Trust, easy, confidence. If we can focus on those three key things, we're building trust, we're making it easy, we're using timeframes and tools to get internal decision makers to say yes as well. We're helping people be confident that this is the right fit for them. That is the framework to be looking at when we're really creating sustainable, long-term sales, conversions, conversations in what is a pretty turbulent and chaotic time that we're experiencing at the moment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this and how you went. Have fun, take it lightly, and I'll see you next week.